The story starts in prison, where Connor is released. On his way home, Garrett, a drug kingpin, offers him a ride. Connor, who once partnered with Garrett, is no longer interested in his old life after being jailed. Seeing Garrett again frustrates Connor, who just wants to live a normal life. Garrett offers him a lift, but Connor refuses and tells him to stay away. A recent news report exposed that 4% of Lincoln City's population possesses superpowers. These individuals face discrimination due to their abilities, leading to poverty and strict policing. Additionally, a drug known as psych is derived from fluid extracted from their spines. Following that, we meet Sergeant King Kingston, who has initiated a new robotic K9 program to substitute the aggressive robotic guardians. 6 months later, robotic drones patrol the city as we meet siblings Pavani and Tara living in a small house. During dinner, Pavani expresses the need for new books for her studies, despite their financial struggles. T reassures her that he will take care of it. T works for Garrett alongside other boys his age. When T asks Garrett for a better job to support his sister's studies, he is ignored. Frustrated, T decides to leave after being pushed to the ground by one of Garrett's associates. The scene shifts, and we see Sergeant King delivering a speech to the public, presenting them with his new K9 dog. He shows how a K9 robot dog is more welcoming and protective. He calls one of his fellow policemen and asks him to attack him with his taser. As soon as the officer uses the taser, the K9 dog attacks him and flings him to the ground. Now, Sergeant King explains that as soon as a person gives up by putting his hands up, the K9 will not hurt him. In the crowd, we also see Pavani watching the K9 suspiciously, and it stares back at her. Then we see Garrett in his home, as his men are filling up a bag of money. He hands over the bag to one of his men and tells him to reach the location in 10 minutes. However, we see Tarek hiding there, using his camouflage abilities. As soon as Garrett and his men leave, he follows the ones who are providing the money on his bicycle. He sees them throwing the money bag in a trash box and decides to take it. He breaks the lock and takes the bag out, but at that point, some policemen arrive at the scene. T swiftly conceals himself behind the trash boxes and observes Sergeant King and his men arriving to collect the money. Sergeant King becomes angry and insists that Garrett must still pay the money. The policemen search for the thief and discover Tarek. Tarek flees from the scene, but King's sergeant dispatches his K9, Piper, to track him down. The robotic dog pursues Tarek to a barn, where he narrowly manages to shut the door before it can reach him. After a while, Tarek believes the K9 has left, only for it to re-enter the barn through the door. Despite its attempts to follow him, Tarek cleverly uses his camouflage abilities to evade detection. Eventually, the K9 departs, prompting T to head back home. However, as soon as he exits the barn, the K9 apprehends him. Sergeant King and his team observe T through the camera and order the dog to inject something into him. This triggers a reaction in T's body, leading to his immediate death. Pavani arrives at the scene and witnesses T's demise, causing her to scream. Upon hearing her scream, the K9 turns towards her and starts running after her. The scene then changes, showing Connor leading a typical mundane life. He is working as a janitor, busy mopping the floor, when a policeman who appears to know him arrives and mocks his life. Connor informs him that he has moved on from his old life, but still hands him his card before departing. He mentions that a significant amount has changed in the world during the 5 years he spent in prison. Connor is taken aback by his statement, and at that moment, a woman named Mina appears and inquires if the man is causing trouble. Connor reassures her that he is just an old friend. Mina then offers him some food and advises him to take care of himself. Meanwhile, Sergeant King enters a room at the police station where Piper is being treated. It is disclosed that something occurred when Piper attacked Pavani, and the police are now searching for her. Later, Connor nonchalantly enters the store in his home and discovers Pavani hiding inside. Connor is taken aback by her frightened expression and decides to bring her to Mina. Mina attempts to console Pavani, but Connor panics when the police suddenly show up. Mina advises him to leave while she distracts the police. As they flee the center, their faces are captured by the cameras, prompting Sergeant King to start searching for Connor. To reach Pavani, he goes to see Garrett, discovering that Connor and Garrett have a shared history. Despite this, Garrett refuses to assist him. Meanwhile, Connor takes Pavani to his apartment and conceals her. While there, they watch a news report where Sergeant King announces T's death due to a psych overdose. This news angers Pavani, leading her to ask Connor to turn it off and reveal her powers. Connor attempts to comfort her, but Pavani informs him that they are here, as she consents them. As soon as police enter the building, Connor tries to escape with Pavani, but they are stopped by other policemen. Witnessing this, Connor uses his special abilities and eliminates them. After this, they board a bus, and Connor appears very terrified of the situation. Pavani indicates that they need help, and Connor decides to meet with Garrett. They meet at a local restaurant, and he asks Garrett to support Pavani in getting out of the city. However, Garrett provides a better offer to him. He tells Connor that Pavani is a transducer. She has unique powers that can change a K9's programming, something that nobody has been capable of doing before. He offers to give Pavani everything that she requires in life if she agrees to work for Garrett. However, before this, they need to remove the memory of her brother being criticized by a K9 so that Sergeant King can leave them alone. Connor convinces Pavani for this, as he thinks that it will keep her safe, but Pavani asks him to arrive with her. After this, Connor presents Garrett to Pavani, and he takes her and Connor with him. On the way, he describes his way of work to Pavani, and she agrees to work for him. They take her to an unusual place where we see an old woman who takes Pavani to meet her daughter, Tamara. She explains that her daughter is also special, just like her. It is revealed that Tamara has the power to erase memories, so she helps Pavani erase her brother's memory. Connor witnesses the events unfold. As Tamara starts removing her brother's memories, he steps in to remind Garrett that they had only agreed to erase his most recent memory. Despite Garrett's men trying to stop him, Connor uses his electrifying abilities. To rescue Pavani, they make their way to Mina's place, where they borrow her car. Mina drives them out of the city, but King Sargent and his men track them down using a drone and inform Garrett to capture them. Garrett quickly reaches them and surprises them when their car stops working under a bridge. Garrett is determined to eliminate Pavani, but Connor blocks his path and insists that he must eliminate him first. Despite Garrett's hesitation, King Sargent steps in and orders his robotic policemen to attack them. The robotic policemen start shooting from a building, resulting in casualties among Garrett's men, and Garrett himself gets shot, leading to a dire situation. With no way out, Mina decides to sacrifice herself by distracting them so Garrett, Connor, and Pavani can safely get to the car. As Sergeant King arrives at the scene and questions Mina about her friends, she remains silent and tragically passes away. Meanwhile, Garrett leads Connor and Pavani to an abandoned sanctuary where they choose to seek refuge. Garrett asks Connor for help removing a bullet from his shoulder. Connor becomes upset with the situation and they start fighting. Pavani steps in to assist Garrett. Using Connor's powers, they successfully remove the bullet. They decide to rest, and in the morning, Garrett discovers someone at the door. It turns out to be the man who had left his contact card for Connor earlier. They seem to have a connection, and the man offers to help. Together, they plan to kidnap Sergeant King's K9 and retrieve video footage of its crimes. This information will expose Sergeant King's real identity to the media, setting them free. Garrett takes on the man's police uniform and makes Connor wear glasses to look smart. They disguise themselves as officers and go to King Sargent's home while Pavani waits in the car. They go inside and meet his wife. She informs them that the sergeant is not present yet, so they ask her to let them wait inside. During this, Sergeant King comes with Piper and leaves it in the garage. As he looks inside, his wife tells him about the guests, and as soon as he enters the living room, he is shocked to see Connor and Garrett. However, he keeps himself from stating anything in front of his wife. He asks them why they are here, and they pretend to be from his unit, who have come to encourage his new campaign. Meanwhile, Pavani gets inside the garage and tries to unlock Piper. As soon as she begins, the police department gets an alert, and they try to contact Sergeant King, but Garrett threatens him not to answer any calls. Then Connor excuses himself to use the bathroom and goes to check on Pavani. They both unlock Piper and take it to the vehicle. Meanwhile, Garrett and Sergeant King get into a fight, during which King reveals his powers. This surprises Garrett because he had been claiming to be a normal human all this time. Then King's wife arrives, and Garrett escapes with Connor and Pavani. They head to the building where they plan to transfer all the data from the K9. However, as soon as they reach there, Garrett changes sides and plans to use the K9 for his own advantage. He tears apart the K9's head and takes its body downstairs. After a while, Sergeant King also shows up at the tower, and Garrett goes to propose a new deal. He offers to cut his previous share in half if Sergeant King agrees to go back, promising to preserve his secret crimes in return. However, Sergeant King beats him and stabs him in the abdomen, then places another robotic dog to watch him while they go after Connor and Pavani. As the police enter the building, Connor persuades Garrett's men to hand over the K9's head and assist them in exposing Sergeant King, or else they will all die. All the operatives join forces to defend themselves while a fight ensues between them and the officers. During this, Connor and Pavani take the K9's head and make a prompt escape. As they reach the corridor, a K9 catches them and attacks Connor, injecting him with the same fluid that was used to kill Track. Seeing this, Pavani uses her powers and gains control of the K9. Suddenly, another one of Sergeant King's men with a K9 arrives and orders it to attack Connor and Pavani. However, Pavani orders the K9 under her control to kill it and attack the officer. Then she collapses, and Connor realizes that she is bleeding. He picks her up and takes her outside, where the media and police have gathered. He puts her down on the ground, and Pavani asks him to bring the camera from the media so that she can transfer the evidence she got from the K9. She transfers the entire data of Sergeant King's crimes, which is broadcast live on the channels. Now, at last, he is exposed. As he follows Connor and Pavani out of the building, he gets mad upon seeing the video being played and takes out his gun to shoot them, but Garrett intervenes and uses his powers to stop him. After this, Sergeant King is taken into police custody. The scene shifts to 3 months later, where we see Connor back in his old life, mopping the floors of the community center. However, this time, the building is not empty, as we see a lot of children playing there. During this, we also see Pavani, who is pleased to see Connor. After this, an investigation is introduced into the K9 program with hopes of exposing more fraud. On the news, it is revealed that the investigation regarding the K9 program in Psych has proven that the corruption runs deeper than anyone expected. Thank you for your time to watch this movie.